G'day and welcome to PEPZING. Now today I'll teach you exactly how to make a text mute or voice mute system on your Discord server that you can type out just one command and it prevents members from typing in your channel or stops them from speaking in your voice channels, and lastly sends them to a mute cell where they can speak directly to the moderators. I'll be honest, muting members so they can't type or see channels is a little tricky, but that's why I'm here to help walk you guys through it. The main reason I'm making this video is that there are a couple text mute tutorials out there on YouTube, but pretty much all of them skip over the necessary details to understand how the roles and permissions work on a server, and they also skip over how to set up the mute command on specific channels that might not be set up as you typically see. Personally, I got pretty frustrated myself because in my server, I have text channels that can only be used by members that reach a certain level, such as when they reach level 15 on Me6, they unlock a channel that is only available for level 15s to type in, and if you follow traditional text mute tutorials on YouTube, then members that are specific levels will still be able to type in these channels, which is obviously not a good thing. So basically, I'm taking out all my frustration and all the time I spent figuring out how to make this system work and turned it into an actual helpful and applicable text mute system that works for you guys watching right now. If you're watching this video to learn how to either voice mute or text mute, they're actually both the exact same setup, so no matter which one you do, the setup will still work the exact way I'm teaching it. Either way, I'll explain this all in the simplest instructions, so keep watching. So let's begin. Firstly, Me6 makes its own muted role, so if you want to use the Me6 bot, I would recommend that you use the mute command straight away so that it creates its own role right off the bat, and then we can edit that role as the muted role. If you already know how to set up the Me6 mute command, then you can skip ahead, but for everyone else watching, let me teach you. You simply add Me6 to your server. If you don't know how to do that, I've got a tutorial right here about adding bots. Choose your server, allow it to send messages, view channels, read message history, and of course the main one, manage roles. Click on the moderation tab in Me6, then scroll down to the mute command and turn it on. Then click on it and allow whatever members you want to be able to use this command. From here, you can also set up an auto mute system if people are breaking the rules, and it will use the exact same mute role to mute the members. Allow Me6 to be able to view every channel you want it to see, and all you need to do is type !mute and the member's name, and you'll have made a mute command. From here, all you need to do is go into server settings, and you'll see that Me6 has created its muted role. Just get the role and drag it up to the top of the server until it is just below your moderation roles. You can leave all the permissions grey, or you can turn on the view channels, read message history, and send message permissions to green and save it as that. Now Dynobot uses an existing mute role, or it will make its own role, so if you use both Me6 and Dynobot like I do, then allow Me6 to make the role first, and then use the Dynobot command, and it will use the created mute role that Me6 created. If you don't use a bot, just go to server settings, roles, and make a role and call it muted. So there are a few things to first understand. For this muting system to work, you're going to need to turn off all the permissions of the @everyone role in your server settings, if you want to follow what I do. Maybe this system could work with permissions on, but I've not tested this and it's a bit too much work for me to figure out, so if you want to follow, just have all the roles turned off. From there, you can turn off whatever permissions on and off for whatever role you want. For example, I have a country role that people can pick up to show their country. However, I don't want them being given any extra permissions by having this role, so I have left it as blank, meaning that if they are an @everyone role and they pick up this role, they will literally be in the same situation as if they didn't have this role. However, further up here, we have my verified role, and because they are verified into the server, I have allowed them to read message history, view channels, and send messages. And you can change this for every other role you have that is below the muted role. The only thing you need to focus on in this entire video is the view channels and send messages permissions. And when I say view channels, I also mean the read message history permission, as they always go together. So whenever I say view channels, I am also talking about read message history. Those are the only 3 permissions you need to focus on. Everything else you can turn on and off as you wish. It doesn't really matter. The second thing to understand is that if a role is grayed out in the server settings and is grayed out in the channel settings, then the role cannot do anything. For example, here in the general chat, view channels is turned grey for the @everyone in both the settings and the channel settings, and therefore it cannot see the channel. However, if we turn on the permissions in the channel settings, all of a sudden the role can see the channel, basically meaning that the green and red box in any channel can override the grey server permissions. So you could pretty much leave the server settings gray and do all the settings in the text channel, and it pretty much wouldn't make a difference. But this also works in the opposite way. And if the permission is turned on green in the server settings and left gray in the channel settings, then it will override the gray and allow the user the permission. So basically, red or green permissions always overrides the gray. Lastly, you retain the permissions of all the roles you currently have. So for example, in the general chat, if you are the @everyone role, meaning that you have no permissions, you cannot see the channel as it is grayed out for you. However, once you get the verified role permission, the view channels is ticked green and you can now see the channel. But this means that if you are given the next role above that, the muted role, and it has the permissions to view channels turned off and is in the red, you can still see the channel. You may think that red means you can no longer see the channel, but now that you can view the channel with the verified role, nothing can override that green tick, even if it is a level above. Meaning that if you simply have a muted role that turns the permissions red, that will not do anything to stop a member from typing or seeing the channel, which is why we need to make use of the gray middle ground permission. This is pretty much what it all relies on. So the basics of the text mute system is actually quite simple. If we use the example of my general chat, much like every other server, this is a base level channel that everyone can see and type in except for the @everyone role. Basically, this means that if a member does not have a single role, they will be an @everyone. We typically call these members unverified as they haven't picked up a role to verify themselves into the server. I have a video right here that teaches how to make a verification system and how it works if you want to learn that. But basically, we don't want people that have no roles to be able to see this channel. Then we have the verified role, and this role we do want them to be able to see and type in this channel. So this is where this tricky gray permission comes into play. Now, hypothetically speaking, if you have the read and send messages permission ticked green for your verified role in the server settings and all the other roles above in your server settings, then you could pretty much just leave all the permissions gray in the channel settings, but we won't go into that. Anyway, let's just assume that you have the view channels and read message history clicked green for your verified role. Then you must leave the send message permission grayed out, as send messages permission is what will turn red for the muted role. Like I said earlier, please remember that when I say view channels, I'm also talking about read message history. So if view channels is on, read message history will also be on. If there's one thing to learn from what I've just said, it's that you're either going to need to leave the view channels or the send messages permission turned off and one turned on. No matter which one you choose, one of them must be left in the gray and the other on the green. You could technically have them both gray, but we won't get into that. And then leave it the same for every other role above that. So we have the verified with view channels green and send messages gray. Commentator level 2, view messages green, send messages gray, level 5, same thing, and so on from there. However, when we reach the muted role, this is where we turn the gray permission into red. So if you look closely at the send messages and I click on muted, the send messages permission turns to red. So we left either the view channels or send messages permission gray the entire time, and now we can override it by turning the mute permission from gray to red. And of course, turning this green role here to red actually doesn't do anything, so you can pretty much leave it gray or green here, as you can't override an already existing green permission. If you want to learn how to mute people in channels that are just for people of specific levels, then keep watching. Anyway, so that is the simplest way to explain how to set up the channel. You now have a simple mute system that works for any non-leveled channels. So now let's say you have a channel that only level 15 members can use. In other words, a member that has reached level 15 in Mi6 and was given a special role that is above all the other lower level members, which I have labeled as Absolute Karen level 15. Now the first thing you probably want is your entire server to still be able to see this channel, but only the level 15 to be able to type in there. And of course, if those level 15s become muted, then they are also unable to type in this channel. Then this is how you want to set it up. Of course, firstly leave the @everyone role permissions gray. Either way, unverified people cannot see this channel. Then for the verified role, we allow them to view the channel by keeping the permission gray, but we turn off the send message permission to red, and do that for every other role that is below level 15 or whatever other level your channel specifically is. This of course means members can see the channel, but they cannot type. Then when you get to level 15, simply turn on the send message permission to green and leave the view channel as gray. And as you can tell, yes, this does mean turning a permission green does override the previous red permission. So we had send messages red for level 2, but level 15 we have turned it green. This in turn means that a level 15 member can now view the channel and can also type. So if you mute someone at level 15, there is no stopping them from typing. However, we have one little trick up our sleeves, and that is the gray view channel permission. Of course, if a member can't see the channel, then there is no way they can type in it. So all you need to do is turn the mute role's view channel permission to red, meaning that no matter what role they have, they can no longer see the channel and therefore cannot send messages. And that is the basics of the muted role. I hope you understood that. Of course, muting a moderator probably won't work, but you can turn everything back on green for the moderator permissions and they will still be able to use the permissions. Now the last thing you can do is make a mute cell. This is where the muted members can speak to moderators to understand why they are muted. This is super duper easy to make. First, create a channel and call it mute cell or whatever you want to call it, and then go to the permissions and make sure that the @everyone role cannot see this channel. Then add your muted role and allow them to view channel, read message history, and send messages. And then just add your mods and you are done. Now only the moderators and muted members can see this channel and talk to each other. So how do you mute members using bots? Well guys, I'll explain this quickly and simply for you. Like I mentioned before, I will teach you the option of manually muting, using Me6, and lastly using Dynobot. Now Dynobot is actually quite lucky because you can choose to remove all roles when you have muted someone, which makes it even easier to mute someone and they cannot type or do anything in your server. Just go to the Dynobot website, go to modules, moderation, settings, and then from there you can choose to remove all roles when muted. Also look at the top right corner and make sure you've enabled the module. And then of course also make sure Dynobot can actually see the channel you are typing in. Then just type $mute at the user, type however much time you want them to be muted for, and then press enter. Make sure of course to also allow Dynobot to manage roles and things like that, and it should work. So that's super easy to do. However, I know a lot of us use Me6 or different bots or even manually mute people, and this requires the system I showed you. Anyway, for Me6, I already explained at the start how to use it, but just to recall, you just press $mute and then at the user. For any other bot, just follow the instructions the bot gives you. You've already set up the muted role system from what I've just shown you, so you should be fine if you can just find a way to make the bot add the muted role to the user, and it should be all good from there. Lastly, you can manually mute a user. All you need to do is left click on their profile and then add the role to their name. So for the very last thing, you may be wondering how to voice mute people in voice channels. Well, you now know how to do the basics of text muting, so you should be able to do the exact same thing in voice channels. For example, what I've set up here is the @everyone role obviously cannot see the channel. Then we have the verified people who can connect and also speak because I have allowed this permission in the server settings of the role. And they can automatically already use the speaking function. Then you have every other level and role you want to have, and you can just do the exact same thing and allow them to just connect and everything else gray. And finally, you have the muted role, and I simply made speaking to a cross and red so they can no longer speak. So once they join, they are unable to speak in the channel, but they can still join if they want to and just listen to what people are saying. If you don't want them to be able to join, you can also just turn off the view channel permission, and then they also won't be able to join. Or you can just right click the user and server mute the member automatically. Either way, I'm sure you guys can figure it out after watching this video. It's all pretty much the same as long as you have a gray role and turn the role red when it's muted. It should all work out how you want it to. So please subscribe or give this video a like if you found this helpful in any way. It's completely free to do and is a great way of supporting me for the information I've given you guys. I'd appreciate if you join my server that I have linked below in the description and in the comments. Say hi in the chat, comment below if you found any of this helpful. I'd really love to know your feedback, and feel free to check out any of the videos you see on screen right now. Cheers.